News on KTVU Fox 2.
New video of the deadly insurrection at the U.S. Capitol as the House panel investigating the January 6 attack presents its findings, making a case that former President Donald Trump is to blame.
President Trump summoned the mob, assembled the mob, and lit the flame of this attack.
There were officers on the ground, they were bleeding, they were throwing up, I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood.
The bipartisan committee now turning its case over to the American people in its first public hearing tonight. Good evening. I'm Mike Meeback.
And I'm Julie Hayner. The committee stressed former President Trump is to blame for what they call an attempted coup and said democracy is still at risk. KTVU's Jana Katsuyama joins us now live with the key takeaways from tonight's hearing. Jana.
Julie and Mike, tonight's hearing lasted 2 hours, and the committee released testimony from White House witnesses and new video footage of the attack on the Capitol. There also was that emotional testimony by a police officer who was injured in the clashes with the rioters.
We need backup.
New video of the attack on the Capitol on January 6, 2021 was among the evidence the 9-member House Select Committee released to the public during Thursday night's hearing.
January 6th was the culmination of an attempted coup.
The 7 House Democrats and 2 Republicans laid out evidence saying President Trump knowingly made false accusations of election fraud and plotted with his allies to overturn the election and remain in power.
In the last 17 months, many of those same people have tried to whitewash what happened on January 6th, to rewrite history, call it a tourist visit, label it legitimate political discourse.
The committee shared an 11-minute video of the attack, along with evidence from more than 140,000 emails, text messages, and other documents. Testimony from more than 1,000 witnesses included Trump's Attorney General William Barr, who was among the top officials who repeatedly told Trump there was no evidence of mass election fraud.
I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was bullshit.
The president's daughter, Ivanka Trump, testified she agreed with Barr.
I respect Attorney General Barr, so I accepted what he was saying.
The committee says evidence showed Trump had 7 strategies for trying to overturn the election. And when more than 60 legal challenges failed to show any evidence of fraud, witnesses told the committee that Trump tried to get state officials to change results, replace electors, and pressured the acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and Vice President Mike Pence to stop the certification of the election.
President Trump summoned the mob, assembled the mob, and lit the flame of this attack.
Republican Liz Cheney pointed to Trump's December tweet instructing supporters to gather on January 6 and stop the certification, saying it will be wild.
Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify, and we become president.
New video from British filmmaker Nick Quested shows members of the far-right militant group Proud Boys and other supporters in a violent clash with police officers who were trying to defend the Capitol building and members of Congress inside.
And I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood. It was carnage. It was chaos. That day, it was just hours of hand-to-hand combat.
There also was testimony from General Mark Milley saying that it was Pence who called for more forces that day to secure the Capitol, not President Trump. Tonight, Trump criticized the hearing on social media, still maintaining that there was election fraud and irregularities on a massive scale. The company says the public needs to hear the evidence and the facts that disprove that because the nation's democracy is still at risk.
Jana, thank you. Joining us now here in studio, UC Hastings law professor David Levine. David, if this was a trial, you could say this was the opening statement. Do you think in this case the committee laid out clear evidence here that shows the former president, Donald Trump, is responsible for January 6th, and also if he's in any way linked to the Oath Keepers, to the Proud Boys. And I mentioned those two groups because 17 of their members have been charged.
Right. Well, Mike, they certainly have laid the case out in the way you would want a good prosecutor to do in the opening statement. What you want to do is you want to bring in your jury, here the American people, and to say, this is the story we're going to tell you. These are the highlights of the story, and this is what we want you to watch for. And I think that they did a fantastic job of laying out the story, and particularly Representative Cheney really just was a star tonight in terms of laying that out. Now, in terms of does it link to the president, they're pushing in that direction. That we have hints of that. I don't think you can say it was proven. And with respect to the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, we're not there yet because this is the opening statement. Certainly, there are hints of it. Certainly, we're going to see more if we believe what these representatives have said about what is to come. But you can't say at the end of these 2 hours that anything has been proven in the way that you really would need to. But they have gone a long ways to begin to tell the story and to bring people in on the narrative that they think is the truth, what the American people need to hear.
Okay, so this is just the start, the first hearing. House investigators trying to make their case to the American public that January 6th should not be forgotten. If you had to pull something specifically from tonight's presentation, from tonight's hearing, what would you take away from that?
Well, I think what they did is they made it as dramatic as possible so that we won't forget, so that that's why the long video, so that we could see the timeline as the speeches began down by the White House, and then as people gathered and people planned to go in, you can see this was not spontaneous, this was not something where people just got carried away, or certainly the leaders did not get carried away. And so I think they did a great job of tying those things together. And then I think that there are highlights in terms of the statements that we saw in terms of what's to come, in terms of what did the president know, when did he know it? Could he reasonably have believed that the election had been stolen? I think the committee wants to say no, he could not have done so, and that they have given us hints of powerful evidence to go in that direction.
And speaking of elections, I mean, come November and the midterm election, Republicans may argue, look, this is about gas prices. This is about inflation and rising crime in big cities. Democrats, on the flip side, would argue this is about democracy. This is what, if we don't have democracy, we don't have this election come November. And I just want to point out this line. The committee today argued that the conspiracy to thwart the will of the people is not over. It still exists. Did they make that case today, Professor?
Well, I think not yet. Not yet.
Still waiting.
I mean, they're saying it, but not yet. And of course, I think we probably won't be able to get into much of that in these hearings because we only have another half dozen hearings. I mean, you could go on for months and months. They've interviewed 1,000 people. And the reason I say that is I doubt that we're going to get into the detail of people who believe the big lie, believe that the election was stolen, and who are now running for offices, whether it's in Michigan, whether it's in Arizona, and other swing states. That's where the real danger is in terms of down the line. Who gets elected to those posts? So I think hearing from somebody like Secretary of State Raffensperger from Georgia, I think is going to be really important because he was front and center in the effort to go around the legitimate process, and he was successful in winning his primary. So he, to me, is one of the key people.
Tonight's hearing included never seen before video and video testimony, as we saw in Jana's story right before this, including testimony from former Attorney General Bill Barr and President Trump's own daughter, Ivanka, among others, basically saying that Mr. Trump's fraud claims had no merit. Your reaction to that part of the hearing tonight?
Well, I do think that was really powerful because part of the narrative has to be Mr. Trump knew that he was peddling lies. Not that he was just mistaken, that he was under false impressions, but that it was an innocent mistake. He knew that these were lies. And so that to have people who were so central to his administration, including his own daughter, saying, look, I believed that this was not true. His handpicked attorney general who carried so much water for him. And then later on, his vice president. So over and over and over again, central people will say the president knew this was not true, and yet he peddled this to the American people. That is key. That's going to be one of the most important questions, and I hope that by the end of this, we will have very clear answers.
We've got to run. Does the former President Donald Trump run for office again or no?
Oh, I think so. How could he resist? Come on. Come on, Mike.
Professor David Levine, always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks
pleasure,
so much.
Pleasure to be with you today.
Good to have you here.
Thanks
so much.
Well, minutes before the hearing got underway, House Republican leader Senator Kevin McCarthy tweeted this message: as Democrats in Washington abuse their power to attack their political opponents, they are ignoring America's crime crisis. The message was accompanied by a video compilation of news coverage of high-profile crimes. And former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton tweeted this: the people involved in the criminal conspiracy to overturn the will of America's voters, which culminated in the attempted coup of January 6th, must be held accountable. The next two hearings are scheduled for next Monday and Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, and the dates of at least 3 more hearings will be announced at a later time.